This is Roel Kanayadijk.
I'm a lecturer in ancient history at the University of Oxford.
He's been in this series of videos for one of Business Insider's YouTube channels where he evaluates battle scenes for their historical accuracy.
I'm begging movie makers to please stop it with the orders to the archers. This never happened. The knock, draw, loose thing, it's not real. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.
I like these videos quite a bit. Roel speaks with a lot of passion about his field of expertise, and he often communicates points of inaccuracy in ways that feel obvious in hindsight.
You don't order them to shoot in volleys. When you order everyone to draw at the same time, some of these guys are going to get really tired and they're not going to be effective. Others are going to be like, this is too slow for me. I can shoot faster than this.
But I wanted to engage with these critiques he voices of archer scenes.
If the old man's in range, why isn't everybody shooting? They're making all these people on the walls hold their arrow for a really long time. And these are really heavy bows, so it's exhausting.
I'm not trying to dunk on Roel. He clearly has an awareness that what makes for an exciting movie isn't a rigid adherence to current academic understandings of history, but it feels meaningful to me to articulate why a movie might do this, specifically looking at the Battle of Helm's Deep. Here we're focused on Aragorn's leadership. He has to pull together an army of trained soldiers of Rohan, undisciplined conscripts of varied ages, and a detachment of elven archers. His skill as a commander is made tangible through his ability to get all these groups to move in unison, which is important for someone striving to rule over thousands of people. And doing this specifically with drawn bowstrings makes you feel the tension literally. This slip here is powerful because this one dramatic moment starts the dominoes falling for the whole battle. A slow buildup where archers with the strongest arm and bows shoot first and quickly, and slowly other people start doing it and the army gets closer, more people shoot, and the battle is a slow windup rather than an exploding powder keg. I don't know whether if someone had come up to Peter Jackson and explained to him that this was inaccurate, if he would have changed it, but I doubt that he would. I'm interested in thinking about whether movies should be historically accurate because of recent controversies around Gladiator 2. Personally, I don't think this is a necessity or the main purpose of historical art. Perhaps this video is weakened by having not seen Gladiator 2 because I don't live in one of the two important American cities, but I hope I've given at least one example of how breaking from historical accuracy can be dramatically justifiable and crucial. And I think I'm okay with some embellishments of specific animals or events happening in an arena if it's to the dramatic and broadly holistically correct effect that ancient Rome had some shockingly advanced technology and spectacle for nearly 2,000 years in the past. Suspension of disbelief is a phrase that I think often gets unfairly characterized both by its advocates and plot hole hyperfixators as quote-unquote turning your brain off. I actually don't think it's the epitome of turning your brain on if you're watching the Battle of Helm's Deep sternly complaining that there aren't ditches, or why are they shooting distinct volleys, why aren't they pouring boiling water, you don't do that on a skateboard. I think it's more about meeting a work where it's at. Our capacity to get sucked into the melodrama of something is actually kind of beautiful, and being taken in by a work of art involves giving over a lot of yourself. A friend and I are watching old Godzilla films, and I love the special effects even if they aren't convincing by modern standards. There are real models being built with tangible physics, and there's so much excitement seeing all the different techniques used on screen. It's been fun to get absorbed by something with standards we aren't used to. We're still willing as a society to accept approximate sets in theater as being representative of a space not fully built, but it's so rare for us to do something similar with movies. I wonder whether this is part of why so many films have this artistically boring and cartoony CGI standard no one is all that happy with. It's something that kind of meets audience expectations of realism, but doesn't invite them to engage with film in new ways. And yes, it's very impressive when movies nail realism or historical accuracy or whatever, but that doesn't mean that every movie needs to. It's very cool that the club scene in The Social Network has Jesse Eisenberg and Justin Timberlake yelling even when the set was almost certainly quiet. But part of the reason that works is that the takeaway of that scene is to reinforce Timberlake's character as this loud and intoxicating presence whose world Zuckerberg is getting swept up in. It doesn't make sense for a lot of movies where the vibe is characters hanging out for them to be straining to hear and be heard. I was listening to a commentary track on The Last Days of Disco, great movie by the way, where the director started trying to justify the characters being able to hear each other over the music, and that made me sad. They invested me in the characters enough I'm able to think about stuff other than the decibel level of the room. I've gotten into the weeds a little bit, so let's return to Roel. I have nothing but fondness for the man, and there's a reason I can imagine he gets frustrated with these movies. It's that, unfortunately, these are the way many people will build their mental images of the points in time they portray, and for someone who's dedicated their life to that, that's painful. My feeling at this point in time is that this should not be the job of movies, and the problem is more the rest of society failing to pick up the slack, but unfortunately, at least speaking for America, history learning is not where it could be be, and a lot of it involves watching these sorts of movies in a classroom. The process of engaging with history, not just as a set of bullet points or a linear order of events, but as a discipline by which we build the most clear picture of the past, is one mostly done at the university level, and the ongoing complication of that understanding doesn't make it to most people. I made a snarky comment in a previous video about 90% of history YouTube just being ripped from Wikipedia, and I don't watch nearly enough history YouTube to be able to back up that claim, and I'll just be more specific that there was one video that really annoyed me. Salmonella made this video on Fidel Castro's relationship with dairy, where he says some things that make it clear he doesn't really know much about this subject.
We're all familiar with Castro, right? Dictator of Cuba for the whole second half of the 20th century, main antagonist of the Cuban Missile Crisis, you know.
He refers to Fidel Castro as the main antagonist of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, this is sort of a hotly debated historical claim. People will focus on the decision by the Soviet Union to move nuclear warheads into Cuba, and some will argue that these were two sovereign nations in a military alliance who legally had the right to exchange arms, and that a comparable thing had been done between the US and Turkey with a similar distance to the Soviet Union. Or it's a predictable thing to happen when you have two global powers swinging around the most powerful weapon in the history of the known universe. But I don't feel comfortable saying something definitively because I'm not super well versed in the subject, and neither is he, because this is the tenor of someone whose only knowledge of Cuba is Call of Duty Black Ops and the Medium post he read to make the video. That's not to send hate his way specifically, but this is a video with 8 million views. My country's relationship to Latin America is something that I care about, both as someone with ancestry in South America and as an American kind of implicitly responsible for those interventions, and it upsets me that this popular picture is able to be painted by someone that really doesn't seem to know about the issue. A pretty conspicuous thing is that he says,
according to several sources, Castro was known to be able to eat 18 scoops of ice cream after a meal.
If you read the article, that source is Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who, if you Google famous Latin American authors, he's the first result. You would want to name drop him if you knew anything about that. That quote is more interesting because it came from him specifically. It's an 8-year-old video, so again, not anger at him, but along with YouTube allowing people to make very personal content with less resources, has come this cost of people being able to form our picture of history without actually having much of an understanding of it themselves. And that's sad. So I can see someone like Roll being upset that some of the popular and accessible ways that people engage with history are giving them bad perceptions. I don't have a solution to this, but I do think these kind of videos are good. They meet people where they're at with interests in pop culture and create this parasocial relationship with someone who is actually an expert in the things they're talking about. And as a final addendum, I want to speak to my own lack of expertise. I'm a 27-year-old with a degree in psychology I don't really use, who is trying to better understand and articulate my relationship with the visual storytelling I enjoy, and share that journey in a way that others find engaging. If you've enjoyed this video, this is the type of thing I'd like to prioritize going forward, so subscribe if you want to continue down this path with me. Thanks for watching.